अच्छञ्योरावृणीमहे गातुं यज्ञाय गातुं यज्ञपतये दैवी स्वस्तिरस्तु नः स्वस्तिर्मानुषेभ्यः ऊर्ध्वं जिगातु भेषजम् शन्नो अस्तु द्विपदे शञ्चतुष्पदे ॐ शान्तिः 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 सहस्रशीर्षा पुरुषः सहस्राक्षः सहस्रपात् स भूमिं विश्वतो वृत्वा अत्यतिष्ठद्दशाङ्गुलम् पुरुष एवेदगं सर्वम् यद्भूतं यच्च भूयम् उतामृतत्वस्येषानः यदन्नेनातिरोहति एतावानस्य महिमा अतो ज्यायागिश्च पूरुषः पादोऽस्य विश्वाभूतानि त्रिपादस्यामृतं दिवि त्रिपादूर्ध्व उदैत्पुरुषः पादोऽस्येहाभवात् पुनः ततो विश्वं व्यक्रामत् शासनानशने अभि तस्माद्विराडजायत विराजो अधिपूरुषः स जातो अत्यरिच्यत पश्चाद्भूमिमथो पुरः यत्पुरुषेण हविषा देवा यज्ञमतन्वत वसन्तो अस्यासीदाज्यम् ग्रीष्म इद्मः शरद्धभिः सप्तास्यासन् परिधजः त्रिः सप्त समिधः कृताः देवागद्यज्ञम् तन्वानाः अबध्नन् पुरुषम् पशुम् तं यज्ञम् बर्हिषि प्रोक्षन् पुरुषम् जातमग्रतः तेन देवा अयजन्त साध्या ऋषयश्च ये तस्माद्यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः सम्भृतम् वृषदाज्यम् पशोगस्तागिश्चक्रे वायव्यान् आरण्यान् ग्राम्याश्च ये तस्माद्यज्ञात् सर्वहुतः ऋचः सामानि जज्ञिरे छन्दागुंसि जज्ञिरे तस्मात् यजुस्तस्मादजायत तस्मादश्वा अजायन्त ये केचोभजादतः गावोह जज्ञिरे तस्मात् तस्माज्जाता अजावजः यत्पुरुषं व्यदधुः कतिधा व्यकल्पयन् मुखं किमस्य कौ बाहू कावूरूपादावुच्येते ब्राह्मणोऽस्य मुखमासीत् बाहूराजन्यः कृतः ऊरू तदस्य जद्वैश्यः पद्भ्यागं शूद्रो अजायत चन्द्रमा मनसो जातः चक्षोः सूर्यो अजागत मुखादिन्द्रश्चाग्निश्च प्राणात् वायुरजायत नाभ्या आसीदन्तरिक्षम् शीर्ष्णोद्यौः समवर्तत पद्भ्याम् भूभिर्दिशः श्रोत्रात् तथा लोकागम् अकल्पयन् वेदाहमेतम् पुरुषम् महान्तम् आदित्यवर्णन्तमसस्तु पारे सर्वाणि रूपाणि विचित्य धीरः नामानि कृत्वाभिवदन् यदास्ते धाता पुरस्ताद्यमुदा जहार चक्रः प्रविद्वान् प्रदिशश्च तस्रः तमेवं विद्वानमृत इह भवति नान्यः पन्था अयनाय विद्यते यज्ञेन यज्ञमयजन्त देवाः तानि धर्माणि प्रथमान्यासन् ते हनाकम् महिमानः सचन्ते यत्र पूर्वे साध्याः सन्ति देवाः अध्यः सम्भूतः पृथिव्यैरसाच्च विश्वकर्मणः समवर्तताधि तस्य त्वष्टा विदधद्रूपमेति तत्पुरुषस्य विश्वमाजानमग्रे वेदाहमेतम् पुरुषम् महान्तम् आदित्यवर्णम् तमसः परस्तात् तमेवम् विद्वानमृत इह भवति नान्यः पन्था विद्यते जनाय प्रजापतिश्चरति गर्भे अन्तः अजायमानो बहुधा विजायते तस्य धीराः परिजानन्ति योनिम् मरीचीनाम् पदमिच्छन्ति वेधसः यो देवेभ्य आतपति यो देवानाम् पुरोहितः पूर्वो यो देवेभ्यो जातः नमो रुचाय ब्राह्मये रुचम् ब्राह्मम् जनयन्तः देवा अग्रे तदब्रुवन् यस्त्वैवम् ब्राह्मणो विद्यात् तस्य देवा असन्वशे ह्रीश्च ते लक्ष्मीश्च पत्न्यौ अहोरात्रे पार्श्वे नक्षत्राणि रूपम् अश्विनम् व्यात्तम् इष्टम् मनिषाण अमुम् मनिषाण सर्वम् मनिषाण ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः
Namaste. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvisha vahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we have started the fifth mantra, and so we'll continue with the explanations of the meaning of that, the significance of it, the implications of it. That's the more important thing. The word Purusha Suktam, of course, means Sushtu Uktam. A Sushtu Uktam, not Uktam, but Uktam, means one which, an encomium, a praise which is well said. So well said means that it describes the function, the swarupa, the srishti, the meaning of the srishti, a sense of the whole creation in a very good way, in a very complete way. That's really what it means. So we're very happy that we have the wisdom of some Mahapurusham, Mahatmas, that can see inside of that and give us a picture. Because if you just look at each word meaning, then you look at the Sanskrit translations of that, and you have to kind of put it together yourself. And it all depends on what your knowledge is. But if a Mahatma has a vision of the totality, then you can tell where each mantra fits in. It's kind of like, if you have a person who knows how the whole car is put together, then you have a much better idea of where each part is. But if you try to put together the parts, not knowing the totality of the vehicle called car, you may make a mistake. So we're very happy that we have the Mahatma's commentary on this that gives us some of the subtle points about it. So looking at the 5th verse, Tasmat Virad Jayata. Tasmat Virad Ajayata. So Tasmat means from the Purusha, which was described in the first 4 verses. From that, Virad is born. So Virad here, as we have seen, I'm just quickly going through this. Virad means Vividham Rajate, one which is expressed in a variety of ways. In fact, the whole universe, and with no ending. You cannot say that it is now only up to 1 trillion miles from here, different galaxies. No, it is infinite. If you go to the end of the galaxy, you'll find another infinite galaxies from there. This is what our Shastra says, infinite. So this is what Virat is, the infinite universe. Tasmat Virat Ajayata. Virajaha Ati Purushaha. So then not only the body of the universe created, but also an Abhimani. Abhimani means one who is a conscious person. Because the body is never conscious. The body is only inert. Even for you and I, the body doesn't really feel that I'm insulted. I'm not good looking. It's you and I that might feel that I am not as good looking as somebody else. I'm not as tall as whatever. And so it is a conscious person who's called an Abhimani, who has an identification. Here, the first Purusha born, Virajaha Adi Purushaha, is now the one who has the Abhimana to the entire universe. This is me. And so that person is Brahmaji, and the Ishvara created that Brahmaji to have an identification with the entire Virat. And here Swami Maheswaranji says this word Adhi, which follows Virajaha Adhi Purushaha, is significant. So Adhi here means one which is kept inside the original Purusha. So it's not as though he has outsourced it and say, okay, you do it. He has created Brahmaji in his own image within himself itself. It's not developed something outside of that. And that means that Ishvara is in fact the master, a continued protector of the entire universe. So here, as we have seen before, this is a very important thing to see, that in the first 4 verses and then starting with the 5th verse, we see that our origin is the Purusha. We all come from the Purusha. As the next one will say now also, we meaning you and I, individuals. But even the original Purusha, which is Brahmaji, also came from the original Ishvara Purusha. So here the word Purusha is used in multiple ways. So you can say there are 3 of them, in the sense of three different ways of looking at it. One is the original Purusha, which is Ishvara. The second one is the Brahmaji, who is very close to the original Purusha. And we say close to, and in fact I will clarify this later on. It's a very interesting process on what is close and what is distant. So I will comment on it a bit later on. But close to here means, and Swami Maheshananji pointed out that Brahmaji had the full knowledge of the self. Full knowledge of the self. Here's who I am. I am the creator. That I am undifferentiated consciousness. And here is what I'm identifying with. So this is a complete Purusha. No, nothing is lacking in Brahmaji, as was created by Ishvara. So Virajaha Adi Purushaha. Now comes the next stage. Saha Jataha Atyarichyata. So Saha Jataha means the one who is now created, which is the Brahmaji. Jataha means one who has been consciously created by Ishvara. Atyarichyata. Atyarichyata means that now he splits up into many. Splits up into many. How he splits up into many will come in a minute. But the splitting of Ishvara into many happens. And the word Atyarichyata means that the splitting is such where the entire wisdom of who the self is withdrawn from them. They don't have, you and I do not have a complete wisdom of a completeness of our wisdom is not there. We have partial wisdom. Everybody has a little bit of a partial wisdom. Even a little bug has some partial wisdom. It knows, I think this is dangerous, I shouldn't go there, I should go here. And I see that people go for their food very quickly. Lizards, they swallow little bugs, so they have partial. But the lizard doesn't know who I am, what's happening. Similarly, the human beings also has some evolution, has some better knowledge, but we are lacking the crucial piece in ourself, which is incomplete. And the crucial piece is that I am a complete person. Purnamadav Purnamidam is not known. Is not known. I have a feeling that I am an incomplete person. I am looking for something and not able to find it. Swami Maheshananji has said this so well, I think I've already mentioned it to you, that if you really analyze everyone's conduct, every human being, we're talking about human beings, they seem to have been they've lost something, they're finding something. They might be doing this, that, or the other, different things and so on, but behind all actions, there is a common loss of something. What is it? What is that loss of? And sometimes not even sometimes, often, most of the time, we cannot articulate it. There's something inside of us, but we cannot, we're trying to find it, but we cannot articulate it. What is that? So Swami Maheshananji says, it is a sense of completeness. We have all our experiences confirm my limitedness. The fact that I am okay for the time being, but I am not okay forever. This is the sense of completeness. And this is, but I am not, if you say that supposing you are incomplete and you don't have really, you don't have the sense of completeness, so accept it. It's okay. No, but I can't do that. No one accepts it. We are all searching for a sense of totality. This is what is lost. And this is another way of saying we are searching for God. We may not articulate it. You cannot walk up to somebody and say, "Did you know you were searching for God?" He will laugh at you. He or she will laugh at you. What are you talking about? fact of the matter is we are searching for something which makes me complete, and that completeness only resides in Ishvara, God, Purusha. And so, honestly speaking, and of course the completeness is only one. Infinity is only one. You cannot have two completenesses because they both limit each other. So if that is the case, then believe it or not, we are looking for an identity between myself and Ishvara. Because I want Ishvara's completeness, and Ishvara's completeness is not possible without it being me, because otherwise I would limit Ishvara, and I can't do that if I have to define Ishvara's completeness. So Swami Maheshananji says we may not believe it, we may not articulate it, but really everyone is searching for Ishvara. Swami Dayananji used to say this. He says, if somebody, I think I may have mentioned it to me or to you, that if you strike up a conversation, and which happens all the time in social circles, you have a glass of wine and the other person has a glass of wine, and you're just having some hors d'oeuvres, and somehow the topic after the coronavirus and Trump and all of these problems and so on has been hashed over many times. You get tired of it. And then somehow the talk comes to, do you believe in God? You can even start this if you want. And you may find people say, no, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in God. So then the next question should be, which God do you not believe in? Define that God that you don't believe in. And the person will say, one who is very kind-hearted and there is no dukkha in this world, there is no problems and everything, and everybody is forgiven and so on and so forth. Then you can begin to define what God is. But here, Purusha here means a sense of completeness. And Sahajataha Atyarichyata means that sense of completeness has been covered up and has not been given to you and I. From Brahmaji onwards, everyone else is hungry for completeness. There is a hunger for it. And I'm using this word very deliberately because there is a very interesting example that Swamiji gives to talk about hunger. And this gives a very interesting idea about the creation and the reason for it and the function of it and the nature of it. I'll come to that in a minute. Anyway, coming back to the word translations, Sahajataha Atyarichyata means that original Purusha has now created others. And in doing so, he has withheld the completeness which he has. I'm just talking about a male here, but it doesn't really matter. The one that he or she has, Brahmaji, that completeness is not passed on to the other heirs, which is you and I. Infinite number of heirs. Saha Atyarichyata. Then to complete the word meanings, Paschad Bhumim created. So you can add the word Bhumim Ajayata. So Bhumim Ajayata means now the details of the creation are, so at first these were sketched out. Like an artist also has a shadow of a person that you are sketching. You make a sketch out of it and then you start to put some details into it, colors, and fill up with pencil and with pen and so on and so forth. And so here now, Bhumim Ajayata. So Bhumim, as we saw last time, is all of the So here, interestingly enough, I'll just back off on it for a minute. Paschad bhumim atha puraha. Paschad means after sajataha atyarichyata, after it has been divided up into these jivas like you and I, the jiva is given two things. One is experience and the method of experiencing. So puraha means the body. Again, all of the things in the body, not just the body, but also the physiological aspects of it, prana, etc., etc., mind, software, hardware, everything is called the puraha. This is where the jiva resides. Each one of us have an identification with a set of tools, hardware, software tools. And in fact, we have a hardware. Hardware means that I have a specific body that people can see. And I have a software that people cannot see, but only I can see. This is the difference between body and the mind. You can see the expression of the mind. If you are very unhappy, then people will see that you are unhappy, but they cannot see it directly. But if your body is not doing well, then others can see it too. Anyway, each one of us identifies with the body, which is called puraha. So that is the experiencer. And then the world that I experience, and it's a one for one. And so there are forms, and there is an I created to see the form. Beautiful creation. Look at this. It's a one for one. You cannot say there are a lot of things going on in the world, but unless I am blind in some cases, which is possible, it's not as though I cannot experience this. Whatever experiencing tools you have are adequate for the experience. They're done together. So the last point in this verse number 5 is Paschad bhumim atha puraha. So bhumi means all the pancha mahabhutas, all the elements. The mahabhutas means all the great elements. The akasha, vayu, agni, apaha, prithvi, all the 5 is the experienced, and the tools for experiencing them are in the puraha. Now this creation is complete. It's complete. Okay, so now the next thing I wanted to go over is how is the creation done? This is an important thing to see, which will be continued on throughout the Purusha Suktam. Okay, so the creation is done. Just look at the analysis of the creation. Okay, so now if the created and the creator are two entities in the same level of reality, then it is not possible that the creator will not change as the created is changing. So let me repeat it. So for example, if something is created that has the same degree of reality, then it is not possible that the creation has no effect on the creator and only has an effect on the creation. Here Swami Maheshanji takes the Indian marriage system as an example of this. And those of us from India, we can all nod our heads internally. I'm not the modern weddings where the boy and the girl sort of decide on their own and they just, there's nothing to do with parents. But in 99% of the cases, the parents get together and decide on a marriage between a girl and a boy. So here's what happens. Typically in India, which is a male-dominated society, the girl marries and moves in with her husband, and oftentimes the parents of the boy also live there and so on. And quite often she has to adopt a new name. Many of these families in the old days used to change the name as to signify a new life. But in any case, even if that is not done, there is a lot of change in the girl, the woman who marries, because she has to adopt new ways that she didn't have before and so on. So Swami Maheshananji says, the mother of the groom feels all of the changes should happen in the bride and will take care of her and so on, which is not almost the case, but you'll say we will make sure that she's okay. But there is a lot of change in the girl. She doesn't want any changes in her own son, because if the son is very loving and he greets his mom and dad and takes care of them and so on and so forth, that part there is no expectation of a change. Swamiji says, they're whistling in the dark. What are you talking about? Pretty soon, in fact, this is what happens in India. The boy gets more in line with the girl's family. Even if he doesn't, he starts to pay more attention to his spouse, as he should, and starts to neglect his parents. Anyway, I just constructed a huge argument for that, but the point is that in any creation where there are two similar entities, here a bridegroom and a bride, you cannot have change in only one and not in the other. So now, if Ishvara created Brahmaji, what would happen is that for that creation, he would have to also change. Before that, Brahmaji was not there, and now he is there, and it all comes out of Ishvara, so Ishvara can also change. That cannot be. If the Ishvara also changes and then can slowly atrophy, that is not Ishvara. Ishvara is always the Varat Pratyaya. Ish means the boss, which is always the boss, is called Ishvaraha, like Bhaswaraha. Always the sun, always the sun, always the sunny person. Similarly, Ishvara means unchanging boss. So we know that there's no change there. How does he then create? This is an important thing for us to see. That creation is done with a reflection or an image. So, if a person is standing in front of a mirror, then a kind of a copy of that person has now been created. And when that copy of the person has been created, has the original copy, not the original copy, but the original person changed? No. That is the nature of this whole creation. And not only that, when that person creates the jivas, it is also done through mirrors only. This is a very important thing to really think about and grasp. And what happens here, I was talking about, remember I was talking about nearness and, and farther. So Swami Maheshananji says, look, suppose you go into a gym or some kind of a shop where they have mirrors that are facing each other, multiple mirrors, just to make it appear as though the whole place is much bigger. Supposing you have that. So what happens is that the image on the immediate mirror is very close to, it's very sharp, very close to you. As you look on the multiplicity of the mirrors, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, all the way up to 50, 60 of them, it starts to get hazier, not as sharp. So our Shastra says this is exactly how the differentiation is created in Devas, celestials, and Manushas, and the animals, and also the flora and faunas. So the Devas are created close to it. So they are the mirror images where things are very sharp, their minds are very sharp. And they don't need a body, that's a separate thing altogether. We don't have to go into that detail. But then, as we go farther off, then the human beings become a little hazier. Compared to the human beings, the animals become hazier. They're also a reflection. Everything is created through reflection only. But the quality of the reflection, the function of the reflection changes. This is how the creation is done. And so similarly, you can say when you are dreaming, there is a copy of you which is created, and you created an entire scene of people, and really out of your own mind, and then you withdraw it. We will come to that. This is the definition of Atma. So we'll maybe even come today or some other time. Okay, so this is an important thing to see how the creation is done through mirrors, seemingly mirrors. And the mirror here is the mind, and that reflection of the Ishvara. So here, you and I do not realize that we are the originals. We think we are only the reflection copies, and therefore the reflection copies do not have the full capability. But really speaking, once we understand that there is no difference between Ishvara and myself, this is the Advaita Vedanta, then I am as free as I want to be. I will come to that later on. So another thing to see here is, let me go back to what I wanted to say. So one thing that Swamiji mentioned here is that as I started to talk about even in the last class, where before you see the Ishvara Purusha, same thing, Ishvara Purusha here, as synonymous with your own Atma. Once you see the identity between Jivatma and Paramatma. The Jiva Purusha and the Parama Purusha, if you may. Because here also there are multiple Purushas created, all in through the mirrors. Once you see that identity, then I'm totally free. Because then this is what I've lost and I've found it. And that what I found is unlimitedness. So once that happens, then my journey is complete. But even before that, if my mind allows me to take refuge into a shelter into Ishvara's powers, my life becomes that much better. As I was mentioning about last week also. And so here, what is encouraged is that please discover for your own sake that you have your ultimate refuge is Ishvara. Discover it. Work on it. You don't believe it, then put your Shraddha into it. Because who do I trust as being my best friend? Well, you can say that really the closest thing to that comes to Ishvara is our mother, our mothers. They have the close, for us. For others, my mother may not be as friendly, but for me, her son, or me as her daughter, she is the closest thing that ever came to Ishvara. Her love is not the father, but the mother. Mother's love is closest to Ishvara's love. But even she has faults. And the biggest fault is that she is not permanent. Not permanent. If I go from one life to the other, my old mother is gone. I have to get a brand new mother. And then develop a relationship with her and so on and so forth. And certainly all the other things are gone. If you're working for Microsoft and you're doing very well compensated, you've got a lot of stock options and so on and so forth, Microsoft can go out of business. Or you can be fired. So there's no permanent relationship, refuge to your company or to anyone else, and not even to your mother. So she may not be there. Ishvara, on the other hand, is always with you. This is what is called Antaryami. Antaryami means, what is it? Ante tishtan yamayati iti antaryami. The one who's staying inside of you keeps you out of trouble through your conscience, through the wisdom, by giving you buddhi. This is the Gayatri mantra. The very famous Gayatri mantra essentially just says, Om Bhurbhuvaswahat Saviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naf Prachodayat. So the last line of the Gayatri mantra is the most significant. It says, my refuge, O Ishvara, is to you. May you guide my thinking. May you illuminate my mind in a very friendly way. Prachodayat. I remember attending a talk by Swami Dayanandji. And even just about 6-7 years ago, Swami Viditatmananda had given the same talk when he had done a temple abhishekam in our Rishikesh ashram. The temple, every 12 years, the temple has to be renewed. And so Swami Viditatmananda was asked to preside over that function. But even really before that, Swami Dayananji also. Swami Dayananji said, if you look at your life, one's life, what we find is we don't take big steps. We're incapable, it just doesn't happen. But what we do is small steps are given to you, and you are required to have the wisdom, should I go this direction or should I go in that direction? Beautiful. Absolutely true. Swami Viditatmananda said the same thing. He said, I remember his talk from Rishikesh last 6-7 years ago, I guess it was. Swami Paramarthananda was also there. Swami Tattvavidananda was not there. A lot of other Swamis were there. It's a huge... Omkaranandaji was there. And so Swami Viditatmananda in his presidential he said, I'm sitting here in this position where other Mahatmas are also there, and you asked me to on this pedestal, and you've honored me to give you this, and suddenly I find, how could I deserve this? What happened? I was just an engineer, and now I'm a well-known Swami, and people worship me, and I am able to talk to people, and this, how did this happen? And he answered his own question by saying, Ishvara gave me the wisdom at each step. Exactly the same thing Swami Dayananji also said. And I can tell you on my side also. Because when I met Swami Dayananji, for instance, I could tell the truth of what he was saying. And the truth of what he was saying was mind-boggling. I mean, at least I should give myself some credit. I just sat there and said, what? Can this really be true? And my own mind and Ishvara working through that said, yep. You mean I can be unlimited right here? And the answer was, yep. And then I reasoned, what am I doing here? What can I do to really grasp this? I was working for HP. I don't know, about 32, 33 years old and doing well. And a family and so on and so forth. And it created an enormous force in me to say, I need to change my life. And so again, I could have really gone in any direction. It was not a big decision. But it was a big decision in the sense that I had to make a decision. And I am so happy that I chose that one. That I went to the ashram and studied. And every day those questions come up. So really speaking, the refuge to Ishvara is in the form of making sure that you are making all the right decisions at any one time. And here it is said that look, if you are in the refuge of Ishvara, don't ask for small things. Don't ask for small things. It's a very interesting story that Swami Maheshananji gave in his book. He says, apparently this is a real life happening. When one time Paramahamsa Ramakrishna went to visit what is it called? Brahma Samaj. So there are different schools of thought in India and so on. So there is one Brahma Samaj, I think even now it is there, but it was there in Bengal, heavily influenced by Christian thought. So he was very highly influenced by the Christianity and so on and so forth. And a lot of Hinduism also, combination. So he was asked to give a talk because he had already become a Mahatma. So he was invited to give a talk. And he says, this is Ramakrishna talking. He says, I was sitting there and they were also doing their daily prayers. And their daily prayers was, oh God, please make sure you give us our daily bread. And so I don't go hungry. I am very... And Paramahamsa Ramakrishna sat there and thought. He says, what is this? It is like going to Bill Gates and saying, can I make an appointment to see you? So Bill said, okay, fine, all right. And then the Bill said, what do you want? He says, I want $1. Bill says, wait. You came here to Seattle to meet with me. And what are you asking? He says, just $1. I just want $1. So Paramahamsa Ramakrishna says, this is ridiculous. If you're going to ask for Ishvara, don't just ask for something much more than that. He's capable of doing that. So why just stand there? In fact, he says, so Meshananji says, we are so happy that in our prayers we do the chamakam. Shanchame, Mayaschame, Priyanchame, Nukamaschame, Kamaschame, Saumanashachame, Padranchame. We just go on and on. This is just one paragraph. There is 11 paragraphs. Can you please give me this also? And oh, by the way, don't forget to give me this Dirgha Yutvam, long life also. And lots of... He says, this is beautiful. You may not get it, that's another thing, but ask for it. So take refuge of Ishvara. It's a very important thing. And so don't be shy. Because being shy means you're not sure that he's capable of giving it to you. And ultimately what you should ask for is, please give me unlimitedness. Unlimitedness. Ask for it. Until you ask for it, your own mind will not be engaged. And Ishvara will say, he didn't ask for it. He didn't. That means that you're not ready for it. You doubt your own ability. So either you don't know that unlimitedness can be given, which is okay. If you don't know it, then you cannot ask for it. But if you know it can be done, ask for it. Ask for it means you have to get ready, you have to deserve it. And you will get it. So this is I'm just giving you different points on that. On the talk of the creation and so on and so forth. So now the next point is, what is the purpose of this creation that is given in Purusha Suktam? Tasmat virada jayata virajo adipurushaha sajataha atyarichyata bhumi matha puraha. This is sort of like a sequence. A shrishti, it's a creation. What is the purpose of it? This is an important thing to see. So, certainly the purpose is not to give you historical information. That would be trivial. This is a Suktam. Suktam means Sushtu Uktam, very well done. And the very well done is that, you can tell people, do you know who was the first one? Brahmaji. And the other person will say, I already knew that. What's new? What happened after that? Oh, from that point on, then other human beings came about. He says, I also knew that. So what's anything new you have? Perhaps you can say that, the experience and the experiencer were created. That might create something new. Big deal. The main thing to do in all of these analysis is, how does it benefit me? Talking about history in some kind of a social circle doesn't mean anything. People will say, oh, you're very well read, smart. When they go home, they'll say, not that smart. I know much more. It doesn't really help you at all. So, this is an important thing to see. You have to see, because here it is said that Shastra, our scriptures, never say something which is trivial. And to see the creation as a historical thing is triviality. You have to see the significance of it. And the significance of that is to see unity in diversity. Despite diversity, to see unity, then you are free. Then you're free. This is a bigger deal. This is the real thing. And it requires the right kind of attitude. So here, in this description of the Srishti and Purusha Suktam, and a lot of things are going to come yet in terms of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Shudra, Vaishya, animals, and so on and so forth. So there, the idea is not the details, but to see some patterns that benefit you. Here Swami Maheshanji gave a beautiful example. He said, first of all, two things he said which are similar, okay? So in both cases he gave this example. So let me tell you to both of them at the same time, although they have different examples. So the example is that of a business owner. And in order to make sure that we give both genders equal time, this business owner would be a woman. As my wife is, she runs her own business. So I'm going to take an example from her business. So she has a business, but she does interior design. But suppose that she was in retail business as well, where she has a lot of fabrics. Right now she doesn't own any fabrics. She just goes to a store and gives the right advice to her clients. But supposing she had a business and she had a son working for her and a hired help working for her. Swami Maheshanji takes this example and he says, look at the attitudes of the two people working for this business owner. One is a son and the other one is a hired help. The hired help is likely to do a good job, but at the end of the day, he's going to look at his clock and say, time to go home. And if the business owner says, can you please stay for about an hour or two today? Then he says, no, my wife is waiting and I have to go. She's sick and I can't stay. Why? Because his attitude is totally different. I just have to do something and then I don't have to really do anything. The son, on the other hand, who is devoted to the family business and to her mother, who's the owner of the family, doesn't behave that way. He could be even worse, but if he is a reasonable son, he is so devoted to it and he says, Mom, what do you want me to do? She said, I forgot to go to the shop. Tomorrow is Saturday and can you please just make a trip to San Francisco? Done deal. Tell me, what do you want me to do? So, Swamiji says, my relationship to Ishvara, and by the way, this is going to come up again and again, as a practice, my responsibility to the society. So here we are talking about a connection between microcosm and macrocosm, between Vyashti and Samashti. And here the society is a good proxy, that's a good word, proxy for Ishvara. I have to be devoted to the society and look at it in such a way that I don't expect a lot from them. The problems with the coronavirus is a very good example. Beautiful example where it is not just your own self, but your actions that can also influence everybody else that you come in touch with. You have to wear a mask for yourself, and you also have to wear a mask for others. And if you flout it, then you've got problems. Society has problems. So anyway, this is, I have to watch the time. I think I still have 6 to 8 minutes. So this is one of the things. So here, Swami Maheshananji says, the Purusha Suktam teaches. See, this is the topic. What does it really teach? How do I interpret Purusha Suktam so that it is beneficial to me? And Swami Maheshananji says, here, the bhava, the attitude is very important. And he gives another example. He says, supposing there is a very well-to-do man or a person, woman or man, who has done very well business-wise or in jobs or whatever, and lots of money to spend, and decides to build a wonderful temple or a church. And we all know that in a temple or church, it is not just meant for one person. The whole society benefits from it. But he builds the church or the temple as a service to Ishvara, as a service to God, and says, you've given me lots of money and I want to now benefit everyone in the society by building this temple. This is his attitude. Consider the same person who wins a contract to build a huge building by the federal government. They want to build a brand new building, and it costs $30 million, and this person has now won the contract for it. And this building is meant for really the whole society. But it is not meant to please Ishvara or God. It is for the federal government. He doesn't have the same attitude. You know what he would do, Swamiji says? You will cut corners throughout. You will try to put, if there are two elements that need to go in it, you will put inferior elements so that nobody finds out. Why? Because your profit motive is the most important one. Your attitude is completely different. And so Purusha Suktam will teach us later on that if you wanted to have this wonderful attitude that the son has towards his mother who is a business owner, because he knows that he's going to be well rewarded. Doesn't matter. So he does the job with love and regardless of overtime or anything like that. If I have that attitude, it is beneficial to me. This is one thing. I'll end with the second example that Swamiji gave, which is also a very beautiful one, which is, so suppose that the business owner calls his son, her son, and says, listen, please come to the shop from tomorrow onwards, and I want to tell you about all the fabrics that I see, because I want you to take over. I want you to really own this business. So I would like to train you on how to identify the various fabrics and so on. So Swamiji says, and in doing this, the business owner knows that he is not supposed to know individual fabrics. How much does it cost? Who is the manufacturer? Not supposed to know that. Why not? Because it all keeps changing. It all keeps changing. I can just give you an example. My wife, for example, she has a client who she has worked for a while, and when she builds something new, she says, I want the same fabric that I used 15 years ago. And so my wife goes into finding out who made this fabric, and they're out of business. So she has to give the bad news to the client and saying, I'm sorry, they're not there anymore. So the example here is that the business owner is not interested in providing details of every fabric to the son. Instead, what she is interested in is that the son should learn to recognize good quality. The quality of the yarn, the manufacturers. And whether individually it is there or not is not important, but he should have the wisdom of conducting a business based on the principles of quality, cost, responsiveness, and so on. Why am I saying this? Because Purusha Suktam says, please disregard diversity. Why should I disregard diversity? Because you think that if fabric will keep changing, you have no idea how different this world is moment to moment. How many difficulties, pleasures, changes, shocks, surprises, inability to cope, all those things are going to go on. And if your attempt is to try to master them and become a very efficient experiencer of the world, you're foolish. You're never going to be able to do that. Instead, please see who is behind the diversity. What are the principles of diversity? If you knew that, you will be focused on Advaita with peace in your head, peace in your mind, and disregarding the problems that multiplicity brings. You will not even be aware of that. This is what Purusha Suktam is teaching. So the purpose of Purusha Suktam is not to give you mastery over the diversity, but to show that you don't need to focus on the diversity as long as you knew the principles that are behind that diversity, and so you have a real unity in your heart. So once again, I didn't quite get to all the things that I wanted to do, and one thing that we will go next week is to try to answer this question. Sajataha atyarichyata. What is the reason, if there is any, where except for Brahmaji, the Atma Vidya, the self-knowledge, was not given to the rest of us to begin with. Why? Beautiful question. And this is the same question that everybody asks. Why there is so much problems in life? Why could you not have a creation where there is no problem? Is it possible to do so? We've already looked at it a couple of different ways, and this one example that we will do next week also gives a very important new angle to this, as explained by Swami Maheshananji. I'll be very happy to go over that next week. Okay, so with that, I close the class today with a prayer, and then I will see if you had any questions. And I would just say that I would like to have the questions relative to the class on that day. If you have something separate from that, you could still ask, but I would prefer that you keep it to the topic at hand. You can ask me anything on email, and if I'm capable, I will be glad to answer that. But your questions should be on today's topics, and this way it will be more relevant for all of us. Om Sato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Harihi Om. Why could you not have a creation where there is no problem? Is it possible to do so? We've already looked at it a couple of different ways. Suvarna, Arvind Taylor, Krishna Ryan, Darshana Bhutta, Maithili, Ramakrishna, Sri Krishna Venkataraman, Mary Penn, Arun Rajanala, Prakash Nair, D. Srinivasan, Raj Velapuri, Jai Raj, Chandra Dulam, Thandris, Vandana Agarwal, Leela Joshi, Shanti Kumar, Murli Daswani, Surendra Bhargava, Shankar Narasimhan, Lichi, Subhash Jain, Shruti Harve, Panna Bhuva, Kalpana Dave, Jugal Kishore, Bimla Kishore, Keshav Chopra, Shobhana Dalal, Akshay Dalal, Sulekha Chaudhary, Lakshmi Kaushik, Satish Jalota, Anjali Deshmukh, Murthy Konduri, K. Shankar, Kamala Shankar. I'm happy that you found it. I think you were the one who were trying to, Kamala, you were trying to find the last week. I'm happy that you found it. Subroto, Zarina, Krishna Birru, Andrea Graziosi, and Ramananji, Sulochana Lulla, Jaya Chaudhary, Larry Lopez, Sam Dillon, Shashi Aluru, Surinder Chaudhary. Question from Arvind Taylor. How is Avachedavada applied versus Pratibimbavada based on today's discussion? So here today, because of the discussion on the reflection and the mirror and so on, it did follows the Pratibimbavada. So it's a reflection, and really it's just a way of explaining that satisfies our minds. It's not as though it is really there that way. It has elements of that, but the Avachedavada also can be similar. So for instance, in the Avachedavada, you can have a space be divided into the various rooms, small rooms, big rooms, car room, without changing the original space. So there also the creation happens without any change to the creator. That's really the concept that the creation is trying to portray. And so that way of creating where the creator is not changing. You see, it's interesting. If you look at, we often talk about a golden ornament created out of a lump of gold, or a clay pot made out of clay. So in that example, the examples are just a way to visualize. They are not perfect. But in any case, in those examples of clay becoming a pot, one can argue that there is a change in the clay, because at one time it was like a lump, and now it has become a cup, and so there is some change in the clay. But in the case of the mirror, and in the case of the Avachedavada, that is not the case. And of course, the very famous example is that of the rope and the snake. So the rope never really became a snake, but it appears as a snake. And so, both, to answer your question, Arvind, today's discussion, even though it directly mirrors the example that we saw about a mirror, but even in Avachedavada also applies without any harm to the non-changingness of Ishvara. Yeah. Andrea, knowing Ishvara to be all-loving and all-knowing, why would I ask anything which must come out of my mind, limited mind, instead of why not say, "O Lord, you decide what is best for me and give it to me"? Well, you can do that. But I would say to that God will give you something that you currently deserve. You see, you are at the current state of where you are based on what God has already given you the results for. I've been working hard and I have now become a successful person. I'm retired. Fine, you deserve it and you enjoy retirement, whatever it is. But if you're looking for something to change, your own commitment has to be there. You have to put a goal, and that goal has to be stated and to be worked for. So God is not sure what you're going to be committed to, what you want to do. You just close your eyes and say, whatever, it's up to you, I don't care. I mean, I'm overstating it, but that's what the effect of that would be, that you decide. God has already said that, really speaking, everybody should understand that they are not different from me and you are already free. That is what is best for me. But I may not be ready for that. That is not even understandable to me. So it's very possible that I may have to take some baby steps. I have to say, okay, the next thing I want to do is that I want to be devoted to you. And I want to know that your powers are something that are prevalent in my life. This is something like a baby step. So then God will say, okay, if that's what you want, I think I'll try to do that for you as much as possible. But to not have a goal and just leave everything to God means that you really haven't progressed anything, because your own commitment is not there. That's just the way I would respond to it. I don't know. Okay. T. Srinivasan says, Guruji, pardon my ignorance, but in asking Ishvara for something, as in Chamakam, doesn't the act of asking imply a duality? Yes, in the beginning, yes. Yeah. In the beginning, yes. So, you can also say that really my main goal, for example, when we chant Chamakam in our ashram, in all of our ashrams, in our teaching and so on and so forth, our main goal is to achieve non-duality. It's Advaita. That's what we are all studying for. But in the meantime, we say that it requires, I'm not there yet, so I have to progress with the help of a good body, some shelter, health, and all of those kinds of things. So it is, please take care of that for the time being. And if I am able to achieve non-duality, well and good. If not, then at least I have some protection from you. So the duality of the Chamakam is subservient. But we also recognize that the Lakshmi and Saraswati and Ganesha are all very important for the goodness of my life to progress, and I ask for that. So it is not it implies duality, but it's a duality which is in the background to support the non-duality. That's the way I would approach it. Between the asker and the giver, one who has and one who doesn't, please help me reconcile this. It is just that I would be asking for the wisdom to realize I already have it. Let me understand this. Please help me really. Just that I would be asking for the wisdom to realize I already have. So no, yeah, this is not so. Sri Srinivasan, what the situation is, that, and perhaps I think that we'll have to explain this in more detail, and perhaps even in Purusha Suktam it will come. But the fact of the matter is that I have a dual personality. I have a dual personality, everyone. And the dual personality is that I am a character which is not real, which is a reflection, and the reflection is not real. And so in this dual personality, the one who is praying is the person who is a reflection. It's a reflection. And so another one you can say is, this is like a dreamer. You have a dream, this is like a dream going on. Or you can, maybe another way to look at this, that you are playing a role. And this role is keeping you. So let me construct something for this method of explaining. So, which is not an easy thing to visualize, but suppose you are playing a role in a play and you've had some drink, you've had some alcohol, and a little bit too much. And perhaps some other drugs also. I mean, I don't know, some hallucinating drugs or something, LSD, or I don't know what the modern drugs are. But the effect of it is that you have lost your original identity of that of an actor. You are now only working as a role, and your identity is totally with the role. Okay, so leave aside the other example, just concentrate on this. So now you have two identities, you have a dual role. You have the actor, who is your real identity, and you have a perceived identity because of the drug. And now you are in trouble. You're in trouble. Somehow you messed up the play and you were kicked out, and you are sitting there and you are drunk, and so the original identity is you have not yet regained. So your first job is to cool down your perceived reality, which is that of a drunk person. And you have to drink some coffee and say goodbye, just sit in a corner and just think and so on and so forth. And over time, you will cool down. And your identity will still be that of the role until you become totally sober. And then you close your eyes and say, oh my God, what the heck was I doing? I cannot believe it. So similarly, in this case, the person who is asking for some cups of coffee because the Maya Shakti has made me so drunk that I have lost the original. I've never really had it. This is the thing. It's from life after life after life. I don't have my original idea of who I am. And I am really as though I have a drug. And all I can think about is that this is me. And even if some Mahatma comes and says, no, you are not just this, you are the very Paramatma and so on. These things don't make any sense to me. How can I be a Paramatma? All I want to be is a good father and mother and so on. And so there is a dual relationship. And so when you are asking for Ishvara, you are asking as a role to say, please calm me down so I can see my reality. And then I'm already that, but I don't understand it. So that's how the duality of my personality occurs. Ramanand says, yes, isn't that what is already happening? Yeah, that's exactly what is happening. So you're right. Like the answer about having a commitment from Sam Dillon. Yeah, I think you're right about that. So Sam, you're right. I think that, there's a Western saying, God helps those who help themselves. And that is a very good saying, really very accurate saying. That until you are committed to something and you are serious about it, then God is saying, if you're drunk, if you are not really ready to become sober, and you're say, one last drink, I'll get sober later, but right now I just enjoy the drinking. Ishvara can say, then soberness can wait. Let him enjoy. So that commitment has to be there, yes. Good. Thank you all for the questions. I enjoy that very much. And thank you all for being here. We'll see you next week. Om.